Good morning, Debbie, and good morning to everyone out there today.
Morning.
Happy Friday. We are excited and thrilled to have Debbie back. Debbie, it's been a few weeks, so thanks for
Yeah,
joining us again.
it has been. Yeah, good to see you guys. Thank you for joining us. Kind of a fun topic today. I often, Sean, have people ask me, tell me, what do you learn by coaching all of these great agents across the
Mm,
country? Because here at Forward, we really have an opportunity to talk to a wide cross section of agents, really all skill levels. A good majority of them, though, in that top 1%, and then also all across North America. So it's really interesting to distill that down and say, what is it that the top 1% agents do consistently to stay ahead? So we thought we'd have a little fun today and just cover that. And, just a quick hello. I think most of you have been with us before, but I am Debbie De Grote, CEO and co-founder of Forward Coaching. My business partner is Ben Kinney. Many of you know Ben, creator of Brivity and Place Inc. and many, many other things. And then, of course, the fabulous Sean, right?
so good to be with you today, Debbie. Thanks.
Yeah, and so Sean, when I was thinking about what do the top 1% really consistently do, they all have goals. And normally those goals are in writing. And that top 1%, in fact, usually have reasonably formal business plans and often starting that business planning in October. So if you think about that, here we are, September. If
Yep.
you started your planning in October, completed that plan by Thanksgiving, really done, all cleaned up and perfect, it would give you the month of October to run a dress rehearsal, right? To try it on, to start some of the new actions and activities, which is a lot easier than showing up on January 2 and starting from scratch. So they have goals, they refer to them often, they're custom tailored often to their skill set, to their unique markets. And also, when I say market conditions, each and every one of your market that has opportunities that are showing up there because of the current market conditions or even the seasonality. So they consider that, Sean, as they're putting those goals together.
Debbie, I love that you're bringing this up. So, every good business writes down goals and sets goals. And sometimes, as individual solo agents or on small teams or big teams, we forget about this. We have a couple things in our mind or things we need to get to. And I'll just tell you at Landvoice, we are in a rhythm. Every 90 days, every quarter, we get off site and we set goals for the coming quarter. So, here we are in September. In about a week, we'll sit down for a couple of days and we will write down all of our goals. We'll make them smarts, Debbie. Make sure they're specific and measurable and achievable, right? And all of those things. And the cool thing about it is we get really specific on the next 90 days. What do we need to do? And then,
Right.
like you mentioned, in October, it's a really good time to kind of look back for the previous year and start writing and planning for those goals for next year. So every good team, every good brokerage, every good company does this, and we want to ensure you're doing that as well, right, Debbie? We got to write down the goal. We got to make sure it's specific and it's measurable, and that we're looking at it every day and putting time towards those goals.
And Ben and I are going to do a goal setting plus a market preview in November. So we'll definitely invite everyone here today so that we can actually help them. And if you don't have a template of a business plan, we'll get that to you, and we'll get that to you before that meeting. But Sean, you brought up a good point. So while we would write our annual goals, have a projection, have a plan, when you break them down quarterly, it's what is it they say, like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite
Yeah,
at a time, right?
right.
And so quarterly, and then you look at that and say, okay, so then what do I have to achieve monthly? And then what do I have to achieve weekly? And what is my goal to win the day each day? So many of our clients right now, Sean, are on a big push to maximize their outreaches in their community, their connections, their lead follow up. and their goal is to set one appointment a day. Now, will that always happen? No, it won't happen every day. But see, if they don't show up with that goal in mind, then it's easy just to fall into whatever happens to come your way, right?
Right.
And if we were coaching each of you, and some of you we are, the number one thing I like to look at is who are you? So examine your personal strengths. It's very easy to think, oh, well, that agent in the office, they're doing X activity. Maybe I should do it too. And maybe you should. However, maybe there's something you're just really great at. So, Sean, for an example, there are some people watching today who are phenomenal networkers. I mean, they can move and shake and mix and mingle, but are they using that skill at the highest level and strategically?
Debbie, what would you tell people when we talk about, because we talk about this in a couple different angles, right? Leveraging our strengths and also leveraging or delegating things we don't like to do, right? Speak to both of those two things if you can.
Well, and I think in a perfect world, we would just love everything we did all day long, right? But I
Right.
think that's actually called vacation. So, since it's called work, my thought would be, when there's only so much billable time in the day, and we want you to have a good quality life, not just always be working more and more and more. I think that's why it's important to say, if I build my lead generation pillars based on the things where a lot of my business already comes from, or I know I'm very strong in those areas, then I can add new lead generation levers on top of that once I really perfect my power base. To your point, though, Sean, there's so much stuff that goes on in the business, and often there are ways to delegate it. Like you may have a phenomenal lender that would be a better resource if you would let them reach out to the client and help you more. You may have other vendor support, or even if you take a look at Landvoice and some of the other awesome technologies, technology used properly can be leverage for you. So if we can get more things off your plate and work more efficiently, higher billable time, in your day, you're going to convert more and you're going to have a better business and a better quality of life.
So well said. I didn't even think about a mortgage lender, but they can wedge so many gaps and help us build that relationship stronger, can't they?
Yeah, I always looked at great affiliates. Now here in California, we have escrow, title. Many of you don't. There's a couple states that don't have title, but we have escrow, title, mortgage. Those three were my really true partners. And I would often ask them as I would be writing my business plan for the next year, how can I work more effectively with you? And is there anything that would be reasonable for me to expect that you could do for me or for my clients that would take a little burden off of me and might even just be easier if I get out of the way? Because sometimes, Sean, what I hear is, well, I'm a control freak.
Yeah.
I don't use a transaction coordinator. I'm a control freak. No, no, I don't let them go into escrow and sign their papers. I do it. I'm a control freak.
Yeah.
Con- Control freaks usually don't make a lot of money.
That's right.
They may do fine, but they're not necessarily going to end up in that top 1%, because the top 1% truly, it doesn't mean that they're smarter or better than anyone on this webinar. A lot of it is just how they use their time, right? And so, a powerful sphere. Everywhere you go, you're meeting people. And Sean, even as they're making their connections, and of course, we're talking about the connections that are not on the do not call list, right? So
That's
the
right.
permission based outreaches, which there are still plenty of them to make. When you're talking to these people, Maybe they're not a buyer or seller today, but they could be a nurture. If you have Brivity or some other CRM like it, you can add them to a market report. You can add them to a listing alert. You can invite them to an event. And then, of course, you have your AAA people who know you, who love you, and will refer you. I was just talking to a doctor the other day that is someone that I know, and he just sold his practice to retire. Think about it for a minute. What does he sell? He sells his sphere, right? He sells all the patient data, all that relationship
That book of
credential,
business, right?
that book of business for a lot of money. So trust me, he knows the value of building a great sphere. And it's no different for all of you. Who knows? Maybe one day you'll decide to retire and you've got this incredible asset to sell or partner. So please think of right now, this is your chance. Get a plan in place to expand your range, reach, and influence in your community. So then you want to speak to this one, Sean, just adapting their lead gen, maybe to maximize opportunities, anything here that ties to land voice that you'd like to talk about.
Well, certainly as we think about the market and how difficult it's been the last 18 months to 2 years, Debbie, we have to like be really strategic about where we put our time, what resources and where. And also when we speak of lead generation, who should we be reaching out to? And low inventory since 2013, Debbie, across the country, right? And so at Landvoice, we do try and help again wedge another gap, which is what data can we get in front of you as the licensed real estate agent? What sellers are out there that need to sell their home that we can help list those homes as quickly as possible? Certainly for sell by owners will never go away. 85% will list with an agent eventually. And so we like for sell by owners, but when we can think about the market and what's happening next, and if we can, I wish we could forecast exactly what's going to happen in the next 12 months, Debbie. But as we look and we see rates trying to flirt with dropping a little bit, right? Are there ways that we can, what I like to always say, Debbie, is how do we stack listings to get ready for this next opportunity of what I think will be a really strong opportunity to sell a lot of homes in 2026. And so certainly Landvoice is here to help, whether it's to increase the sphere of influence or FSBOs and expireds and pre-foreclosures. How can we, use specific market triggers and other things? Certainly our new database of distressed homes has
Mhm.
been a good thing to look at over the last couple of years. So if that's something that might interest you, we're certainly here to help in that regard as well.
So I'm glad you brought that up. And let's go back to the do not call law, right? And I know that
Yes.
in Land Voice, you highlight in red, right? The ones that are not have not given permission. They are on the do not call list. So
Yep.
you know who to avoid as you
Yeah.
dial to keep you safe and legal. Here's a thought though. Some of these categories we're talking about, expired, for sale by owner, distress, knocking on that door and meeting that person face to face is one of the most powerful ways to connect with them. You might say, oh, well, here's 15 great expireds, but they're all on the do not call list. Do you know what most agents will do then? Well, first of all, most agents wouldn't call the ones that are not on the do not call list, but the ones that are on the do not call list, they'll do nothing, right? They'll do nothing. But what if you took those? And what if you work that in your day? And what if you stopped by and knocked on the door? And Sean, I've coached so many agents over the years that were experts in the notice of default, the distress market,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they would do, some mailings. They would make attempts to reach people on the phone, but far and away, especially for that category, knocking on the door. And they used to always tell me late afternoon, Saturday morning, or Sunday afternoon when people are more likely to be home. That's really where they got their biggest success.
We love that strategy. Also, as you know, Debbie, we've acquired Places acquired a mailing, a mailer type of company, right? That is now
Right.
being branded as Inked, And
Mhm.
Landvoice says this is a little bit early, but we are working on strategies and tools to enable you to send mailers directly to specific expireds or notice of defaults or for sell by owners. And so there are going to be opportunities for you to send cards, postcards, or handwritten cards to these types of contacts. Number one, to build your sphere. And number two, to reach out to them where they can then scan your QR code that takes you to your website. And now they're calling you instead of you calling them. So some new things happening that will enable you and empower you to grow the business in different ways.
So, by the way, if some of you are thinking, I don't want to handwrite notes, guess what? Inked is a company of robots that handwrites them for you beautifully and at an incredibly affordable price. So, coming soon, you won't want to miss it. That will be super cool. Now, the top 1% also constantly work to master the fundamentals and continue to improve. Some of you are probably football fans. I mean, I'm fans of the athletes that work so hard or watching the coaches. I get a little restless sitting and watching the game, but my family loves it. Since I am a coach, I read years ago a book, What It Takes to Be Number One, which was a book that Vince Lombardi's son wrote about Vince Lombardi, the famous coach. And one of the things he said in the book is at the beginning of every football season, Vince would hold up a football in front of the team, day one, and say, Gentlemen, this is a football, which seems kind of ridiculous considering these are pro football players, probably had football in their hands since they could walk. What was his point though? We don't get to do new things. We don't get to win. We don't get to innovate until we master the fundamentals. And Sean, what I find is the average agent has a tendency to get good enough. So they get good enough. Well, I take 80% of the listings I go out on. I convert 75% of the buyers. I set X amount of appointments from my dials, and it's okay. But see, the top 1%, they're always looking to improve that skill and beat their own personal best.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a blessing and a curse, but everyone on here is an entrepreneur, Debbie, and we all have to question the status quo and what we're doing and find ways every day to improve. And that's the beauty of coming into work every day, isn't it?
We've touched on this one, I think, already. However, maybe said a different way. Without a predictable process, you will not have a predictable result. I'm sure other industries have the same issue. However, in real estate, it is the common, which is good month, couple of bad months. Good month, couple of bad months. Why? Maybe because there aren't the right systems or processes or utilization of the technology. So when you get a few deals, you get really overwhelmed. Things get really messy. You're doing so many things that could have a more efficient process and therefore would allow you to have time to continue to lead generate to keep that production even. So, top 1%, they have schedule, they have routine, they use technology, they follow their processes, and they run it like a machine, Sean. And
I
then,
mean, yeah, I just want to say one other thing. You
sure.
mentioned retirement earlier, and we mentioned book of business earlier. If we ever want to retire and maybe sell our book of business and our sphere of influence and everything that we're thinking about, we have to have this one slide, right? We have to have systems, processes, and technology in place to make our business valuable enough to someday retire and sell that book of business to someone. So, yes, invest in yourself. Let's get the right systems, processes in place. Let's get the right technology in place as well to help you grow the business so that you can one day retire and sell that business as well.
Well, and I think the top 1%, when they invest in technology, when they invest in coaching, which, by the way, 85 plus percent of the top 1% have at least one business coach, right? Why?
Yep.
Why would someone, we coach people doing 1, 3, 4, 5 million a year in GCI. Why would they have a coach? Because that old saying, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? And sometimes they need help refining that process. So if you're investing in something, please use it, right? Now here's another big one, overcoming the fear of self-promotion. There was a Sunday school song, some of you may remember it, "Don't hide your light under the bushel," right? In other words, let your light shine. And sometimes I think we get hung up on, I don't want to be pushy. I want to help people. I want to be gracious. I don't want to be that stereotypical, hardcore salesperson. And yet that's not really what the top 1% do. Usually they're very relationship based. They have their lead generation systems. And in fact, and when I think about Ben Kinney, he is absolutely passionate about helping people build their wealth by investing in real estate. If, though, you can't overcome the fear of talking to people, a lot of people will not be served, right? That you could have helped, or they might be served by an agent that's not so great and doesn't treat them so well.
Debbie, I think about my brother who's closing next week on a sale of a property, and how I've saved them somewhere between 15 and $20,000 on that transaction just through the negotiation skills, right?
Right?
And I think when it comes to self-promotion, we need someone mentioned in the comments, come from contribution, but we need to be
Yes.
able to help people know all of the assets and the tools and the systems and processes we have in place, but more importantly, how we can help them protect some of the most valuable investments that they've made in their lives, right?
Well, and that's why this slide is so important. You set me up perfectly, Sean. To do that, you have to have market knowledge. And market knowledge is the properties that are available. Market knowledge, the trends that are occurring in your market, anything that's impacting pro or con in your market, even national. And in some of the markets, because you may be really fed by international buyers, even international market knowledge, knowledge of interest rates, knowledge of opportunities. I mean, my niece and her husband, this is going back quite a while ago when rates were quite low, and they were feeling really happy that they had a, I think, 3.5, and he's a veteran. And I heard of something where he could get a refi, and it was a great deal and took almost no time at all. And I think they're at 2.8, and it saved hundreds of dollars a month. That's when you feel really good about what you do. When you use that powerful knowledge to show up as their wise advisor. And in all of this, and there's a great book in my shelf back here, um, by James Clear, The Power of Habits. And one of the things that James talks about over and over again in that book is the small things that you do consistently over time produce the huge results. A small thing. I spend a half hour a day studying my market. Soon I'm an expert. A small thing. I'm wearing my swag and I'm standing in line at the grocery store and I meet someone, we have a great conversation. I bring them back and I add them as part of my sphere. But now years later, like one of our good friends, Chris Heller, has 20,000 people in his nurture category because he did that for 25 years. And 7 to 9 listings a month actually come from kind of strangers. They're just people he met once upon a time and he's been nurturing. So all of these are great things, but the magic is in the accountability because many of you might say to yourself what others say to me when they come here for coaching. I know what I should do. I just need to do it. It's kind of human nature to avoid things that are hard, right? That's just normal. Coaches help you find those gaps and take that next step. And while there's other ways also to have accountability that may be all you need, which is your office manager, your broker, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's an agent in the office and you hold each other accountable. Maybe it's all of the above. But if you need some help, you know where to find me. You can scan that QR code. And I have two great guys, Gary and Ron. They're not salespeople. They don't even have that training or skill. They're customer service. They will give you a call. They'll ask a few questions so that I can gather information and they'll help you get a time set in my schedule. So, Sean, thank you for today.
Debbie, I want to say one thing before we end today. You started with setting goals and writing them down, and you ended with accountability. And I just want to end with those two things. If you will write down your goals and have them in front of you and get some type of accountability partner, Debbie, I've worked with a lot of your coaches before, and I worked with a lot of them before you even hired them. And I love coaches who hold us accountable. And what I'm just, the point of the message today, guys, is let's get our goals, let's write them down, let's get an accountability partner like you just mentioned, whether it's a spouse or a friend. Let's tell them the goal, what we're going to do. If we don't have that person, let's hire a coach with Debbie's organization because they are phenomenal at holding you accountable to the goals you've set so that you go hit those every 30, 60, 90 days and every year. And so just want to give you a big
Thank
plug and kudos to you because I know these coaches. I know how well they are and how well they do at holding us accountable. And I would
you.
say we all need that in our business.
Ben and I are just a little bit picky, just a
That's
All right,
right.
guys, you have a great week. I'll talk to you soon.
We'll
Bye
see you.
bye.